All right.
All right.
I got William Haskell here, and we're just thrilled to have you here, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
We did a podcast earlier, like in the
Yep.
heart of the pandemic, but it was by Zoom.
Yeah.
And I always think that this is the better way to, do
I
these things, because you can see the twitching of the eye and the, the nervousness. And
Exactly.
there is something about this kind of sensibility that you lose in Zoom just a bit.
Yeah.
Zoom's cool in some ways,
Yeah.
because for some artists, or especially artists, they're more comfortable in their own settings.
Mm-hmm.
And you take them out, you pluck them in this thing, and they're like, oh.
Right.
But I don't
It's like
think
the
you're
spotlight.
that person.
No, actually, I don't. I was never a big fan of Zoom. And I did it only when I had to. And but it was great to do the interview with you, and it was cool because I could kind of pan around and show you some of the paintings we have in our house and all that. And it was great.
Yeah, because you collect too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We like to collect both well-established artists and emerging artists. I find it inspirational to buy other artists' work. And,
that's so cool. I know you were looking at Josh Gibson brought in some new stuff, and you were like, "Oh, this is really great."
I'm telling you, his work is beautiful. Yeah, he's really, really doing great. And we recently, I did the Quest for the West show at the Idle and we bought one of a painting by a guy named Luke Anderson.
I like Luke's stuff. I didn't know he was showing there.
Yeah, it was his first year, so we
shout out to Luke.
His. Yeah. So anyway,
what was it?
We actually haven't received it yet, but it's a painting of a hawk in a field.
Yeah,
and it's got some silhouettes of hawks in the background.
Yeah,
and, it's a cool painting.
And he's kind of this new modern West, whatever that is, genre.
Absolutely,
that seems to be kind of exploding. I think.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's. I think there's still a little bit of resistance, if that's the right word. It's. You've got the traditional Western art, which has been such a big part of the whole market for forever, and now you've got a change that's happening. It's like a generational shift. I think that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, no, I think it's like rock and roll, then disco, right?
Yeah. Right.
Metal, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some reality to that, but it's not like it just happened. Right. I mean, you look at Ed Mell.
Absolutely.
And he's doing stuff. Well, actually, his first paintings in like late 70s, are extremely abstract-y kind of landscapes.
Yeah.
And he played both sides of the, the field, so to speak, because did some traditional, was known for his traditional. I can remember doing his traditional paintings and loving his modern paintings, and having resistance from my clients going, well, I want this style. I don't really understand the other. Yeah. And now, that's flipped.
Oh, you can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I personally, I love his more modern stuff.
Yeah.
It's very cubist and I think very energetic.
Yeah, of course, that would go with your, I could see your aesthetics, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when you started this new style that you do, I'll call it that. I don't know how you define it, but you can define it for us. But that was 12 years ago?
Yep. Yeah. It was I did a residency in 2012 at Brush Creek Ranch up in Wyoming. And
that was the flipper, right?
It was really the flipper. And I had done a few paintings for a show that I had at Manitou before that. Mm-hmm. The residency was in September and October, and the show had been in July. And so I had introduced a couple of acrylic paintings that were more in my modernist style. Mm-hmm. And the reaction I got to them was extremely favorable. It was just instantly noticeable. And I enjoyed doing them more. I really made an effort to stop using so much photography to work from, and just kind of made up things in my head. And that was a hard thing to break away from because you're psychologically so attached to that resource.
Oh, I bet.
And it's like, does it look like that? Am I hitting it? And it's
right.
And then you once you break away from it, you're like, what was I ever thinking? And it gives you this sense of freedom. And it's like realizing that I don't have to make something look exactly like it does in reality.
Right.
And so that was a big part of it. And then, and I also switched to, during that time, I started my transition to using acrylic paint instead of watercolor.
Right.
And that was good.
And you were an illustrator too for a long time. So,
Yep.
I mean, I can see how photographs and things like that could have been extreme. I mean, that's how
Absolutely.
you trained, and you were making money doing that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, and really, and I did these dry brush watercolor paintings for a long time, and they sold well. And it
Mm,
was, you know, it just kind of ran its course. I mean, I could only take it so far before the painting would kind of collapse under the weight of what I was trying to do. You know,
mm,
it's the paint isn't made to do that, and so I realized, you know what, this is when I move on,
mm. And
and
that
that's
occurred, you think, in Wyoming at that kind
well.
of
It was
residency thing?
what I did at that residency is I didn't bring any of the stuff that
Oh,
I was
yeah.
used to using.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And so that was like, I had no choice.
Mm.
Or I could have just sat there, I guess.
And I'm assuming you did that volitionally. You thought,
I
I'm
did.
not
Yep.
bringing this
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
I need to.
Yep.
This is a good opportunity to reboot.
Exactly. It was kind of like, it was really like it was like I needed to give myself no choice. And because I had tried a couple of times and kind of just out of comfort and convenience gone back to what I knew. And this was an opportunity to say, you know what, I don't have that option. And so it worked out well for me.
And why acrylic versus oil? You could have done that.
Yeah, and I had painted in oil before.
I'm sure.
One of the main reasons is I like the cleanup of acrylic, and I don't like the cleanup of oil. You know, trying to clean out brushes from oil paint. I mean, they dry out, they get real brittle, and it's also petroleum based, and I kind of just preferred the binding agent with acrylic paint, and it was a little more like watercolor. So I was still within my comfort zone. I still, when I work on a painting, I'll start with a lot of kind of very loose washes and kind of just work it into the shapes that I want, and then let it dry and kind of let it set. And then I'll go back and start to really develop those shapes, into creating that energy and that movement in the painting. And it'll dry, and then you're kind of like, okay, now I'm left with this structure that I can work with. Whereas oil, you can move it around a lot longer, but I kind of like the fact that acrylic dries, and I'm like, okay, now I know exactly what I'm going to do with this. And so, and then I paint to my darkest dark, which is kind of like oil. And then I paint to my lightest light, and I can kind of go back and forth as much as I want until I arrive at the place that, I feel like the painting is finished.
Do you draw on your canvas?
Yes.
The imagery. So you have an idea.
Yep.
You put your
Yep.
canvas up, and then you
Yep.
draw with pencil or
Yep.
graphite. Or,
No, I use a pencil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it's a little more. Carpenter's rule. Measure twice, cut once. I measure like 5 times, and I'll fill books with skip my sketchbooks with all kinds of different ideas. For future paintings and especially when I'm going to design a show, because I don't want it to be a lot of the same kind of imagery. I mean, there's a cohesive element to it, but I want it to be a lot of different things.
Unique.
And so I'll spend maybe a couple of days doing nothing but just coming up with new ideas. And
what does that entail exactly? Are you out in the field looking?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes maybe I'll go through old material, but a lot of times I just kind of refer to my sketches and things like that.
And like a sketchbook kind of thing?
Yep. I'll have, it's almost like when I went to design school, if we had a project, we had to do 100 thumbnails. And usually the first 1 or 2 was the project that I would go with, but you still had to do 100. And that is great to apply to this, because I'll come up with ideas that I don't use right away. Maybe it'll be, all of a sudden in 2 years, I'm like, you know what, this is cool. I'm going to do this, And so I kind of go back through these. I've got about 15 of them, and I'm always adding new ones too.
15 books.
Yeah. And so I'll kind of go back through them and say, you know what, this is cool. I'm going to develop this more. And then I'll draw it out full size, like dimensionally.
And what's full size, you mean?
Whatever the painting's going to be.
So you full size on the canvas, you mean?
Full size on another piece of paper.
Okay, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
And what do you do with those?
Well, then I make sure that everything is exactly the way I want it to be to begin the painting. Then I'll make a transfer and put it on the panel. Because once I start to draw on the panel, if I erase on it, it makes a real mess. And I'd rather be completely prepared to begin the painting
Right.
once I get that on there. And
Yeah.
so it's a lot of steps to go through, but
Yeah, it's like cleaning your brushes.
it is.
You
I
don't-
mean,
you don't want to have to clean that canvas. It's easier
yeah,
to draw it out.
yeah. No, I'm sometimes I'm jealous of other artists that they just start to paint. I'm like, man, but you're all wired differently. So I'm
Right.
wired to do, for whatever reason, to take this journey on every painting. So
Yeah, I think it's the ritual.
it is, yeah. And by the time I'm ready to start painting, I've like drawn it 5 times. So I'm really ready to start. It helps me kind of think it through.
Mm.
And then I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. And you have a lot of ideas in your head to begin it.
Mm.
And so,
And that's for each painting. I don't care if it's a little dinky
doesn't
painting.
matter.
Yeah, you're going to do the same thing.
Yeah. I make sure they all finish the same way, no matter what size they are. It's,
What do you mean when you say that?
well, I mean, it's got the same level of subliminal glazes. It's got
Yes.
the same level of detail. It's got
Got
the
it.
big one. The little ones look just like the big paintings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it takes longer to do them. But we started to kind of talk about this last night. But I would rather spend extra time in a painting and make it what I consider to be exceptional and have it find a new home right away, rather
Mhm.
than having them sit.
Right. Though I will say,
Yeah.
to make them exceptional, I think they're all exceptional anyway. And
Thank
it
you.
still doesn't matter because some
Yep.
paintings are going to sit and it has
Yep.
nothing to do with the painting.
That's a true story. Yep.
It's 110 out. No
Right,
one's into
right,
that.
right,
I mean,
right.
whatever it
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. No, that's
You-
true.
You
That's
know,
true.
I think
Yeah.
artists have a tendency to take it very personal, and I understand why, especially because,
Yeah.
their kids, dental appointments are
Right.
depend on it. But it's not you.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. It is, and you tend to really scrutinize things as an artist. You're like, wow, what did I do wrong on that? As opposed to the one that's sold instantly, and it's
Nothing.
it's trying to guess the future in some way, and you can't do it.
It's like going for an audition and you're an actress or an actor
Right.
and you kill it.
Right.
And they go, thank you.
Yeah.
Not
this time. Right.
It's because it's for whatever reason,
Right.
it's not that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to Prix de West this year and there was a couple of artists that had phenomenal shows
Yeah.
that didn't sell anything. And it's absolutely,
Right.
I even as a gallerist go, that's impossible
Right.
because those are some of the
Yep.
best paintings in the whole show.
Yep.
But it's just, it's just some of it's psychology.
Yeah.
You have one painting instead of 3 and they go, can't see enough. There's
Yeah.
not enough information for the client to figure out if they should buy it. Is this a one-off? Or even when I saw Glenn Dean's work for the very first time at a show, what I was judging, I had them go bring more stuff out because I saw this one painting go, oh my God, it's fantastic. But is it a one-off?
Right.
Right? Is this just the one time? And they brought them out. And I was like, well, no, it's not a one-off.
Yeah.
Same with Dennis Aminsky.
Yep.
He brought me one painting and it was like, wow, that's phenomenal. What else you got? I need to see more. Stephen Datz, all these, because you just don't know. So, you put a single painting in a gallery because everything's selling, unless you're really well known, people may not.
Right.
They go, well,
Yeah.
was this?
They want to see a body of work.
They want to see a body of work.
I can understand that. I'd want to see the same thing.
I think that's where galleries actually
Yeah.
come in handy
Yep.
and are important in this internet age that, artists want to sell their own work and do their own thing, which I get it for sure. But you miss that component of a body of work that somebody can go, let me tell you the story of, Bill Haskell.
Right. I think I would be very surprised if the galleries didn't exist, because I think they're an incredibly important part of an artist's career. Finding the right person to represent your work is finding that champion.
That's the trick work.
It is. It's very difficult. But you as an artist, you're like, how did this person, how did they do it? And it's like, a lot of it is, they found their champion early on.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it really matters. And you can't do that when you're selling stuff on the internet. I mean, it's, I can understand, okay, like, I'll talk to artists that are, they own their own gallery, I know them in Santa Fe, or they do, the tent shows or whatever. And they're like, well, I get 100% of the money. It's like, yeah, well, you may be getting 100% of a tiny fraction of what you could make if somebody was developing your career.
That's true.
And that just, to me, if you want to just make it about money.
Right.
But to me, it's like you want to do things to develop your career and really and to do something. Yeah. It matters to me.
It's a big world out there.
Yeah, it is.
And there are a few artists that really can do it all. And I just am amazed when they do it.
Yep.
But the problem is, again, the amount of who's going to see you is limited.
Yep.
And it is a business. No matter what you want to do, it's still a business.
Absolutely.
So, you can have one, store, one McDonald's, or you can have millions of people that are selling hamburgers. You might do really well with just that one, but you can see it's the exponential. That doesn't mean you need a zillion galleries. You probably need no more than 3 good galleries tops.
Yep.
I think that's somewhere between that, but you do need more than one. And I'll tell that to anybody that I represent. And I figured that out along the way too, because if you just depend on my gallery, I think that's limiting too. Even if I'm selling all your paintings, every one of them, it's still probably not good for you because you're missing other client bases. You're missing other things. Maybe you get 2 champions that are, really trying to, and then we work in tandem to try to really help that artist. The problem is some galleries just won't work together. They can't because they get territorial. And
that's
all
a true
stuff.
Story. Yeah. Which is too bad. Because, and I've met people in the gallery business. They feel like, well, if I do all these things for the artist, they're just going to leave anyway. And it's like, if you're
silly,
I know. And because if you're, it's a risky enough business. You don't want to move around. You want to find somebody who is in your corner, and then you want to just paint. It's like, I don't know very many artists that really, they're like, I'm an enthusiastic businessman. And most of them, that's the part I like the least. And I would rather just paint, but there are other things that are unavoidable that you have to deal with, And so I think when you find that right person, it'll make your career, So
you need trust. You need them to hopefully looking at your art not as a product. That's a hard one for most galleries.
Yep. Absolutely.
They're looking at what your numbers are versus what your emotion is.
Yep. Well, and they also and that tends to be, I think, much more common than the latter, or than the former. Is that they are looking not just at what your numbers are. It is strictly a product, and they're looking at like, we want to sell this today. And we don't care what we have to do to get to that. Rather than that kind of like, well, we're going to do this to build this. And there will be a payoff. It just might not be today.
Right. And you need to do things like, let's get you in museum shows. Let's get you in museum collections. Let's get you into the right collections.
Exactly.
All those things. They're subtle. I don't know how you exactly figure it out as an artist. I assume you just talk to other artists. Is the best way.
Yeah, and some of it is just trial and error. And I know that I've made more mistakes than not. It's just, and I feel like, God, I feel like I've been doing this forever. And at the same time, you got to sit back and be really grateful and humble about what you do accomplish. And I think, we were talking about sometimes a painting just sits. And I think sometimes it's just God's way of keeping you humble. It's like, you know what? It may not always be terrific, and I think when you're reminded of that, it keeps you grounded. It's
not you.
No, for sure.
I think that can be just the takeaway to an artist out there. If it doesn't sell, it's not you.
You take everything personally.
You can't take it personally. You can't control it.
I know you can't.
And the artists that can break free of that and just let, as long as the things do sell, at some point, you're so much more at peace with yourself, and you'll do better. And then you just quit worrying because it'll sell. I like it.
And that's really, a lot of that is just gaining confidence over time. And some people, maybe they reach that point sooner than others. And but it is a really important component to your career is like being confident in what you do and focusing on creating the best possible thing you can create.
Yeah. Well, and you're having what I would call a moment right now, which is kind of an interesting thing, you know, in an artist. And, you know, you've been painting and working in the art field for a very long time.
Yes. I know.
But, you know, you got Art of the West just put your painting on the cover.
Yep. And I
shout out to Art of the West.
I know. Thank you so much. I love it. I think it looks great.
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting? That's a magazine that in the past had been exceptionally traditional imagery.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And yours painting is not.
Yeah. Right.
And it wouldn't surprise me. It'd be interesting to have them on and talk. And actually, I would like to do that at some point. Do they get a lot of blowback for that?
It's a good question, you know, and I thought the woman who I interviewed, Vicky, at the magazine, she wrote just such a complimentary article. It was very kind, and it was, but I've wondered about the same thing myself, and I've wondered that with like different shows and things too. It's like, are you getting pushback from the establishment or whatever to bring in something really different, even though that may be the right thing to do for the show? You know, who knows? Or the magazine, you know, just to show a range of things that are out there, you know, rather than the same thing all the time.
Right.
You know,
and I think they are. I think all the museum shows that I've gone to that do that seem to be, you know, trying to broaden their appeal to other, you know, a museum is a public institution that should, you know, follow what the public wants.
Right.
And what they're interested in. And they need things to sell too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also great to walk into a museum and you're not going to like everything in there, but to see a broad range of things that just make you think differently, you know, that's the great part, you know?
So when you have this moment, what's it like? You know, you're now on the cover. You've got Autry show coming up. That's your first time in that, right?
No.
Is that the second time?
No.
Third? I don't know.
No. I'm not doing that show.
Oh, I thought you got it.
No.
All right. Well, you'll be having a moment there next year then. You listening out there?
We'll see. We'll see. And so now I'm gonna do the Briscoe again, and it'll be my 6th year on the Briscoe. So I've got that coming up after the show with you. And so that's exciting. And the Briscoe's been a great show. And the Idol Jorger's been a great show. Yeah. And really the next show I've got at the end of the week is a small work show at the National Cowboy Museum. Yeah. Which has been a terrific show for me. I mean, and I love the museum. And so I've got that coming up. And so it feels, you know, I of course, it's just a huge compliment. I mean, it feels great, but at the same time, you know, I get kind of caught up in the day-to-day stuff. And right now I'm focused on creating these paintings for different events. So I don't want to say you don't notice it, because you do, but you don't, I don't know. You got to just kind of move on, you know, and yeah. Well, and you have a show for us coming up in January, which we've been working on for 9 months or something. No, I'm excited about it. And you're not a fast painter. No, I'm a slow poke. And and it just takes a while. And then you know, even when a painting is done, I'll sit and look at it for a few days just to make sure, or maybe even a couple of weeks, just to make sure, you know, I'm still finished, you know, and sometimes I'll go back to it. I don't want to overwork something, but you know, you like to know I want to make sure it's really I've done what I wanted to do with it. And so, but I am not a fast painter. You know? And that's because of the process, right? It is. Yeah. And maybe you can just kind of explain that to people. Yeah. You know, it's a very gradual process. So I start with this panel that I have made in Santa Fe at Artisans, and they do a great job. And they do archival barrier on a piece of MDF, and then to separate the MDF from the gesso, and they triple coat it with gesso, and they give it a little bit of texture for me. And so then once it's drawn out of the panel, then I'll gradually just start to paint in, starting from the furthest distance to my closest distance. And it's it'll have like 40 layers of paint. Jeez. And I'll put in, I know, and I'm always like, do I really need to do this layer, you know? And so sometimes, you know, and I've been trying to, I'm always trying to simplify, use bigger shapes without losing, what I want, the message I want to convey in the painting. But So I'm always trying to simplify it. And I'm also looking for ways like, okay, am I just overthinking this? Am I doing things I don't really need to do?
Mm.
And there's probably some of that in there too. So I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. So for one thing, so I can paint bigger and they don't take as long. And that's working.
Yeah, because a big painting might take you 5 weeks.
Yeah, right. Which is I want to avoid that.
Yeah.
It's, the 5 weeks part.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to get it to the point where if I do a 30 by 40, maybe I can do it in a couple weeks.
Mm.
So that's just part of the process of figuring things out. And it seems to take a long time, but it's just a gradual process of working from my furthest distance to my closest distance.
And explain to people that hear that what that means.
Well, so I start with my sky. It's like the furthest thing away, that horizon line, that sky. Then I'll finish the sky first. Then I'll paint the clouds, which is actually the clouds are the most difficult part for me. To develop those shapes. I develop them in darker, kind of bluish gray tones, and then I'll layer all these layers of lighter and lighter colors over it, and with a more opaque paint, and to kind of, I want to really develop the ellipse of the clouds, and all those, when you look at a cloud, you see all these subliminal colors in it, and give it that volume, give it that shape, and almost make them like sculptures,
They are very much.
Yeah. I want to make them like sculptures and just like sculptures in the sky, and then I'll sometimes emulate in a building or something, the clouds in the sky, and almost, so they look unified. And then I'll move down to my landscape, and then I use a latex mask. So on certain parts, so I'll use a latex mask, which is liquid. It's like liquid rubber. All right, and I'll paint it on, and it'll keep an area undisturbed, basically. Then I remove it, peel it off, and I can just paint that one area. It's left completely blank, and then so I do that on the paintings as well. And actually, I've been trying to keep that to a minimum, because it does add. It'll add time to certain parts of the painting. So it's just that just goes to the efficiency part. Then other parts, because you can get these broad washes, and you get this really nice transition. It's just great to be able to use a product like that. So, and I've used it since I was a kid. I was introduced to it at boarding school.
So comfort level.
It is definitely comfort level. Yeah, for sure.
And when you've done it for 40 years.
Yep.
It makes it a little it's how I do it.
It's hard to break free. And, but recently, my wife, who's an artist too, Angie, we did a mural at our church in Santa Fe. And it was probably about 7 feet high and about 25 feet wide.
Dude, you both did it?
Yeah. And so I kind of went in and like detailed everything, but I came up with a sketch, a simplified sketch. And I'm like, a 25-foot painting, how that would take me the rest of my life.
It would take you the rest of your life.
But I did it in 2.5 days. And she was like, wow, imagine if you could do a big painting in 2.5 days. I'm like, yes. And it looks a lot like one of my paintings. It doesn't have that same, it didn't have that same
translucency.
Yeah. All those veils of color, And so, but somewhere in there's an in-between, I thought, for doing larger work, larger scale work. And so anyway, it was a great learning experience.
And so would you try that in the future? Go, okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm kind of waiting for a little break in the, in what I have to do.
Right.
Because I don't want to like do some funky experiment and then bring it for you at the show and go, hey, look.
What do you think?
Yeah. Hey. And so,
but that's okay, actually, because sometimes I think it's a good thing, because you can get feedback, and see what kind of, from not only the gallerist, but clients and things, and,
see what,
or even if they notice,
right,
they may not even,
I because sometimes they probably don't.
No,
I'm
probably
sure
most times they don't.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of times I'm doing things that only I notice, and
I guarantee you.
Yeah, and I know, because I'll show them, before I release anything, I'll also show the finished painting to Angie, and sometimes she'll point out something that's glaringly obvious that I've missed all the time. And other times she's like, stop touching this thing.
Right.
And it's just like, it is done. And,
do you use a mirror at all to show it in the mirror behind to see if there's
I
anything?
don't, but what I'll do is I'll take a picture of it on my phone, and sometimes looking at it just on the phone,
Yes.
I can notice something like, well, that seems kind of off,
Yeah.
or something needs to be changed. And so I'll usually just get her feedback, and I do the same thing for her, and just to get another set of eyes on it, because I'll have looked at it so much that you can miss something.
Yeah, you can't tell.
Yeah,
it's like a writing.
Right.
You write something and you go and you read it 100 times and it does seems right, and then somebody else goes, I don't get it. What?
Right.
And I was like, what? What do you mean?
No doubt.
I was like, oh, that's trouble.
Yeah.
That's real trouble.
And then sometimes there's things that I'm really concerned about. I'm like, do you see anything? And they're like, nope. And I'm like, okay. And then I know it's just me,
Yeah, and that does happen. I had an artist who was not going to give me a painting. They were showing me a little part that they didn't care for just like, it was a technical thing.
Yeah.
I said, no one's going to notice that.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that painting was sold. I mean, I sold it. I mean, because it's so, when you're a technician as well, and you are as an artist, you're looking so closely at these little things that it starts to bother you, and you think it must bother other people.
Right.
Reality is, if a dealer or a wife or anyone else goes, no, that's a nothing burger.
Right.
Don't touch it. Just
Absolutely.
bring it in. You're going to mess it up.
And that can be, that's like the black hole you can go into.
Oh,
because you can get caught up in, and I know I do that sometimes, especially with my process. It can even, getting the idea onto the panel, ready to paint, is this, other artists have looked at it and they're like, man, what, you're going through all that too. And it's almost, I guess, a way of thinking visually for me, but I know that I could have probably just drawn this out on the panel and been done with it and saved myself, 6 hours or whatever, and just gotten out of painting it.
I think the only way you can do it is try it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and maybe, I thought about, okay, after the mural project, I thought, maybe I'll take a large canvas and try something on canvas and not focus so much on the intricacy of what I do right now, and still have it look the same way, and figure that out, but still, the conception and the visual movement and everything, that'll all be there. But maybe I'll reduce some of the other things that are there, and just the way I present those on a panel. You know?
I can tell you it'll work.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll give it.
I mean, it'll work, and
okay.
Very few people will be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Except you.
Right.
I think you're a very structured person. I can tell. I mean, structure is incredibly important.
It's true story.
Yeah. And so it's allowing yourself again to go, okay, just like when you went to Wyoming.
I thought about it before you said it.
Yep.
It's breaking away from that thing,
that comfort level to some extent.
Yeah, it is.
The thing you've put on since you're 40 years, right?
Right.
Those kind of things, right? Because it's how you do it.
That is so true.
But one of the issues for you is that you are methodical and a slow painter. We don't, there's not a lot out there.
Yeah.
Now that's a double-edged sword. It's good for collectors,
right?
In the sense that there's not a ton out there.
Right.
And they're, so there's not going to be flooded the market. You're not going to see these come out for auction and things probably ever or very rarely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to make a living too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And, if you I don't want to say overwork them, because it's not, because they're perfect. But if you allow yourself, I think, again, I'm not an artist, but I'm a creative person. I think if you allow yourself to just go, okay, let me try this.
Yeah.
I bet you'll succeed. You've succeeded at everything else you've done.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
So why wouldn't this succeed as well?
You know what?
Church did.
I'll give it a try.
Right.
Yeah.
That one worked.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
No.
Right. It did. And it looked good, you know? And it's probably a little bit of that, just saying, you know what? And I was in a hurry. I'm like, I gotta get this thing done.
Right.
I gotta,
and it's not for sale.
Right. It's just, yeah.
You're doing it as out of your heart.
Yep. And when I did it, I was going to go back one more day. Okay. I'm gonna go, and I told Angela, I'm gonna go back one more day, and she's like, "What are you gonna do?" And I said, "Well, I'm gonna work on the, it's got a saguaro in it, believe it or not, and I'm gonna work on that cactus some more." She goes, "No, you are not. You are not. It is done.
Yeah.
That you won't do anything to that cactus that anybody is gonna notice." And I'm like, I said, "Well, it's just," and it was almost like saying, "Okay, I just got to release this thing. It's done."
Yeah, that's right.
And when I first, I drew it out, just freehanded on the wall, and then I went through and used masking tape to mask everything off because, of course, that's what I'm used to.
Right, I get it.
And she looked at me and she's like, "What are you doing?" She had gone to run a couple of errands. She came back and full on masking everything off. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, this will make it easier to, put in the sky and everything." And then it really didn't.
Right.
And then she's like, "Okay, whatever." And but that, I look back and I'm like, I could have probably just skipped that part altogether.
Yeah.
So I did. So
anyway. Yeah. Just
I'll try something
too. I actually will say
yeah.
this. I would actually like you to do something like that for my show.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Well, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to.
So, because it might change things, even how you approach and see it might be better. Who knows? I
Absolutely.
mean, and if it saves you time and allows you to do more, because, I know it takes forever for you to do your paintings.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, and it works. And that's the thing that's hard because it works and they sell.
Right.
And also people go, "We love these."
Yeah.
And they are on covers of magazines.
Right. And it's like, okay, why fix what ain't broke? And so it's like, and so I get into that kind of that struggle with that. It's like, well, I don't want to change it too much because
very hard for all artists.
Yeah. And it's
very hard.
And it's just it's a reality, if you didn't have to worry about it, then it would be easy. But,
sometimes I think you just have to not worry about it.
Right.
And realize I'm successful, I'm creative. And it'll be fine. People will respond if I like it. Yeah, it just has to. If you're the thing, if you like it. Right. I mean, when Ed started doing flowers, people were like, "What?" Right. And those are cool paintings. Yeah, because he got tired of doing landscapes and he wanted to do something else. Right. And he just said, "I'm gonna do these." And
I think it's good too. You look at an artist's repertoire and you want to see more than just one thing. Or I do. I do. It's just you can't just do 20 of the same things for a show. Right. And that's a hard thing because you also, you want to do stuff that there's a market for too. I mean, of course you're in a business and you have to pay all the stuff. Right. And people that are out there listening that are clients that are buying, remember that. Right. These individuals eat on your sales, right? Literally. That's true. Yeah, no, it's, and it's, and the whole comfort thing, I have gotten to a point where I do have a comfort level around, okay, you know what, this is going to be okay. Where, maybe when I first started it, I'm sure. Panic attack. Yeah, I'm sure. It's like, my God, what am I going to do? And, but now it's like, it's really going to be okay. And so, and, I know that I just need to, for me, the last few months is I was creating things and just holding them. And then I'm like, and of course I dropped them off down here and it's like, it's great to just release them. And just get them out of my studio, out of our house, so that you don't work on them anymore. Well, exactly, yeah, and they were kind of just sitting all in a row in one of the rooms in our house, and so I would go in and look at them, like, and one of them, just the other morning, and it was in the frame and everything, and I'm like, I'm not going to say which one it is because, but I'm like, what do you think of this little spot right here? I showed it to Angela and she's like, you got to be kidding me. And I was ready to take it back to the studio and be like, okay, I'm just going to. But so now it's like over and done with. It's out. I think when you recognize that's, I think the word issue is right, but it's a issue. It's a quirk. Yeah, it's a quirk, whatever you want to call it. When you recognize it and when you have it, that's the main thing. Right. And then you go, okay, I think Angie's probably your best, sounding board. Oh, absolutely. She's seen everything. She knows everything. Yeah. Right. When she says, yeah, you're good. You're good. And this is not just you, by the way. This is almost all artists have this problem. Right. Yeah. Because, and I mean, really
exceptional artists. I'm not going to name names, but I've had this conversation with them, and they don't. It's hard to let it go because, again, you're giving your whole life, your emotion, everything in this painting.
You're completely exposed.
You're completely exposed.
Whether people realize it,
right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what makes the that and I do the same thing for her. I look at she'll always show me her work and say, "What do you think?" And we'll kind of go through it, and you have to be honest with each other, and,
right?
And and she's always that way with me. Not everything's always perfect or great or anything like that, and there's paintings that I think are. Oh, this is the best thing I've ever done. And she's like, I don't like that one at all. And it's just like, and that's part of, and that's a good lesson in humility, and it really is. And if you listen, it'll make you better. I think it will anyway. And,
of course.
And so it's great. And it's great to hear that all the other artists struggle with it too.
I guarantee they do.
Yeah.
Names you'd be like, what?
Yeah,
they do. I get it.
Yeah.
Right. It's, it's
right.
There's so many components of that painting. It's not, yes, it's a business. Yes, it makes money, but to get to that point is an emotional connection with that piece that it's like when I write a book, it's, I want it out there. I'd like people to like it, but most importantly, I want to like it.
Right.
Even if no one else does. And then if you get it out there and no one likes it, but as long as you like it, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be happy with it.
You have to.
It's like when I look at a painting, I'm like, well, I'd hang it as long as I'd hang it in my house. I guess it's fine. And it goes back to this moment goes back to the moment. Like you enjoy the moment, and it's like there's these paintings that I'm working on right now that you don't really think about the moment because you're like, well, I gotta do this.
Right.
Excuse me. When I get back. And you get so, or anyway, I do. You get so immersed in that you don't maybe that's a bad thing because you don't enjoy the moment,
Let me tell you, I think a lot of artists don't enjoy many moments when it's a struggle or whatever.
Right.
And I'll shout out to Stephen Datz because I think he would be okay with me telling you. But there are times when he is like just flustered and angry with what's not working in his mind because he is also a perfectionist.
Yeah, no, his paintings are beautiful.
And you can look at it. And you see the paintings. They are, and he's a slow artist too.
Yeah, okay. And there's one right there.
Yeah, that's one I've sent, and I loved it. And I said, I'm going to buy that and keep it.
Yeah.
And it's a great painting.
It is.
And it's not big, but it's terrific.
Yep. Well, and that's another thing, because and this is a frequent discussion in our house about painting larger paintings. And for me, one of my all-time favorite paintings as a kid was The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali, which is a little painting. And so I've always been like, you can paint a small painting, but it can have a big presence.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so things bigger isn't always better, but I also recognize the fact that it helps to paint larger work to present it in just a different arena.
Right. Like for museums, they need they need larger work.
They need a larger piece.
And certain houses need larger works. They don't understand smaller works.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, when you do it and you do it right, it comes off. It's such a powerful statement to do something larger. So that's always an ongoing goal for me to work larger.
And you brought us a nice big one too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Vortex. How big is that painting?
It's a 30 by 22.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a large medium for me. I know you've sold like a 30 by 40 in that size, and I'm going to do something larger for you.
Yes.
In addition to the I'll call it the experimental piece.
Yeah, exactly.
But and then it's just a matter of they all take a long time. So then I'm I've already started to think about what I'm going to do, and there's a few ideas that I want to make sure are included in the show. And then it's just a matter of making sure that I simplify them enough so that I'm not putting 3 weeks into it because I don't have 3 weeks to put into it. And so that's the deal, But I love it to see them bigger too.
Yeah, and when you do a show like that you're doing for us, you are looking for different types of subject matter. Like I know there's a javelina in one of them, which is really cool, and a gavi in another. The saguaros, which really kind of are your trademark in a weird way, I
Yeah,
would say.
it's I love cactus, and
Yeah.
I've always have since I was a kid. We have a ton of cactus in our house. We got married surrounded by cactus in Scottsdale, and I've always loved the shapes of them. They and I look for things that present themselves almost as modern sculpture, and I like to paint chamisa too.
Yeah.
And it has these incredible shapes to them.
Right.
They just gravitate with me,
Mm-hmm.
and so do the cactus, and the saguaro is one of them. And to me, it's such a symbolic American Southwestern image. Is the silhouette is so symbolic, and so yeah, it's and we love coming to see them, and they're so
Commune
cool.
with them.
Yeah, and other cactus too, and so like the agave. That's the first agave I've done. So
really,
yeah,
wow, that's terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and it took a while to say, okay, I don't want it to look photographic, but I want to do something, and it's got to look like it's part of my cohesive body of work. And so I played around with it for a while, and that was with some encouragement, and finally got to the point where I'm like, I really like this. I'll do another one. It's a cool subject.
Yeah, and you can tell it's agave. I saw it's agave.
Yeah,
it's agave.
And then the javelina was the same thing.
Right.
I look for. I trained as a wildlife artist when I was a kid, but it
with birds, right?
With birds, yeah, yeah. And I still every once in a while do like a painting of a raven or something. But the javelina I think has got such an interesting silhouette to it. And it looks kind of modern, it's almost like this rectangular block almost, and so it's a really, for me, it's like the perfect kind of thing to interpret, and it's like how Buck Dunton painted bears, and I love the way he did those, and
so good,
and the silhouettes of them are just so cool. He's one of my favorite go-to.
There's artists. A show up at the Phoenix Art Museum of Dunn's work right
now, by
the way.
We saw his show. Maybe it's the same show at the
Taos.
Same.
It's same show, but they've added some things.
Oh, have they really? Yeah.
So, oh, we loaned him a little painting for it.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love his work. It's just gorgeous.
Well, and javelina too might be interesting is when they get angry or upset, the hair goes straight up on the back of their necks.
Okay, that's cool.
That.
Right.
And because I think most of your paintings are emotionally charged.
Yeah. Well, thank you
very
much.
That there is some sense of energy and emotion, sometimes even very turbulent, with tornadoes or dust devils. I don't know. Are they dust devils or tornadoes or whatever you want to interpret them as?
It's kind of, I've painted tornadoes for years, and I use them, it's just a metaphor on life. It's like, you're always going through something, good or bad, and that's really what the tornado is. And we experienced tornadoes when I was a kid in Ohio, and we kind of grew up around them. And then I guess the ones in the desert are kind of just big dust devils, but it's that same kind of metaphor. Like you saw the last this last summer was a difficult summer for saguaros, where some of them just kind of fell over, and just because the drought was so intense, and I follow this saguaro fan club or something on Facebook. Anyway, so there's always that to me, the relationship there is not only like a design relationship, the kind of yin and yang thing, but it's also the environmental relationship of the saguaro and what it needs to exist. So that was kind of my thinking behind the painting.
And the Navajos, the dust devils, are chindi as well. So
ghosts.
So they do work together.
Yeah.
And you can't tell what it is, but you can tell it's turbulence and energy and all that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I could see a javelina with hair coming up might be.
That maybe it'll be my next one. I really enjoyed painting that one, and I just envisioned him, and I wanted to get his silhouette, because it's got such a distinctive silhouette. And then the cactus in the foreground has a bite out of it, because that's I see them biting the cactus.
Have you done buffalo?
Yeah.
I would think they have that same sense of
they do
sculpturally. Kind of thing I assume you had.
Yeah, they just lend themselves so well to. As a matter of fact, you sold a painting This was maybe a couple years ago. It was called Monarch, and it was a buffalo, and it had a tornado, and it had like a small herd.
That's right.
And that was kind of
the problem with your paintings generally is they don't hang around long enough that I get to even enjoy them.
I'm going to keep it that way.
It's kind of funny when I sold a few on the floor.
Yeah,
before I got them out
to
people, and it's interesting sometimes to people who have no clue who you are or what you are. They just go, "Oh, I like this.
Yeah,
it resonates. With me."
It's a huge compliment. You want. I mean, no matter where you are in your artistic life, I find it hard to believe that you don't want people to really love what you do.
Yeah,
you want people to. You want them to respond to it. And,
they do resonate.
Positively.
It's interesting in your paintings. I would say. Maybe more than most. In fact, it's
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Again, I think it's the energy. Personally, I think it's the energy, the imagery. There's something. Yeah. It's very distinctive, which is again what we're looking for. Right. I'm looking for. In an artist is somebody who has their own original, unique voice.
It's when I got to Santa Fe, I moved there in I guess 2002, and I had always. Up until that point, I'd been in Minneapolis, worked in advertising, painted on the side, and made the leap, got out there, I'd quit my job. And then I took a step back and I'm like, what is my style actually going to look like? Because there's a lot of art here. And so then, and it was probably, in hindsight, maybe I would have done it a little bit differently, but you're there and you're in the moment. And you're like, okay, you have to do something completely different than everybody else. And first of all, it's kind of like, I think it's kind of part of the artist's job. It's like rather than just to do something that there's already a lot of existing. You want to do something that's creatively your own. But then at the same time, I think it's good for your career. You want to do something that's your signature without looking at a signature. Right. And that I think is a big deal. So I've always had a lot of focus on that.
That may be one of the reasons that you spend so much time on your paintings too.
Probably. Part of me is, I want to make sure that I keep them as my own. And so then sometimes it's, they're difficult for a reason, and it's like, well, if someone, is going to look like somebody else, then they'll leave me alone.
Yeah. They can't do this.
Yeah. So and some of it is, when you're a because I'm a technician, and one of the things when I got away from using a lot of photography is, I've known other people who are far more skillful technically than I am, and there is like this thing where you almost want to display that, and I think there's a natural part of art where you want to display that, but eventually you get to the point where you're like, that's secondary. Mm-hmm. And I want to, and then you realize that, to me, I realize the thing that really makes it a piece of art is making people feel a certain way emotionally when they look at it, and that's the art.
Yes, number one. Actually.
I agree. I agree. If you can make people emotional by looking at a painting, you're done.
Yeah, that's right. That's what art's supposed to do. Right. And it can be either way. It can be good emotion or it can be negative emotion. It just needs to be,
totally.
It needs to be something that you go, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so, when I was younger though, I focused a lot on drawing and that skill level. Right. And then I realized, after I matured that the true thing is that, and that's why, sometimes, this whole AI thing is, a lot of people talk about that. And I'm not sure a computer can put emotion into an image. I'm just not sure that that's possible, but it's still something you think about. But I think
it's hard to know.
I
mean, I've read some of the writing by AI and I go, well, that's not particularly good.
Right. Right.
It's writing, but it's not, where's the hook, whatever.
Right. Well, exactly. And so there's not the emotion of the person that's written it. And so, that's what really makes it. Yeah. That's what makes it the piece of art that it is. And I think, it can probably write a great cover letter, you know, but beyond that, I'm not sure that there's that much to worry about. Hopefully.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
depends how good it gets.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can figure out, I mean, that's the thing. If you can figure out the essence of what's being human is, then
Right.
they most definitely will be able to
Yeah.
do it. Then
Yeah.
what happens, I think, is that we qualify everything and say, this was human made.
Right.
This
Yeah.
was generated by human.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be,
Yeah.
that'll be the seal of approval that people
Right.
will go, yeah, well, maybe they do a great thing, but it's not
Right.
human made.
Well, sure. And then maybe it'll break down to, when you call a company, would you rather get a human on the phone
Yeah, of course.
or one of the recorded prompts, which I can't stand. So I'd rather always have a human answer the phone.
Problem is when you get an AI that's so good, you can't tell the difference.
That's true.
Yeah. And so
that could be out there too.
That's probably going to, we
Yeah.
will get to that point.
Right.
So that's another story that
no doubt.
art and artists are going to have to deal with,
Yeah.
and art dealers especially,
Yeah.
we're all going to have
Yeah.
to deal with it. It's just, I think being human will always have this quality to it as being what you want, right?
Yep.
And so we'll qualify those things. This
Yeah.
is human made. This was made by humans. AI was not used,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like organic, whatever,
Right.
same kind of a thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
You can
yeah.
get a potato and a potato, and one's
Right.
organic, and
Yeah,
you pay
right.
more for the organic one
Yes, you do.
because you feel it's better, it's healthier, it's in line with your ethos.
Right.
Right. You want to support those individuals that are doing this and
Sure.
growing it this way and not using pesticides and different
Right.
things. And why wouldn't you do that for art? Even if they can completely replicate what you're
Right.
saying, if it's just like a fake, really. I
Right.
mean, you get a fake Versace bag,
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure professionals can go, oh, we know why it's fake,
Right.
but
Right.
you can have a fake Versace bag for ego or whatever, but if you
Right.
actually want a real thing,
Then
you pay
Yeah.
for the real
you
thing.
do. Yeah.
And so it'll be,
Yeah.
you'll be dealing with it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Absolutely.
yeah, we all will be dealing
Yeah.
with it sooner than we think in professions.
Yeah.
It's, because it's not hockey stick as
Right.
far as hockey stick is going like this, and
Yeah.
technology. AI is literally like this. It's a straight line
Yeah.
up, which we've never had before.
Right.
So the technology is outstripping what we can understand. That's why they have to, the governments really need to step in and regulate certain things. And they are right now.
Yeah.
They are trying to step in and regulate. And with the help of big corporations too, at least in
Yeah.
America. I don't know what happens in China and other places like
Right.
that. But
Right. Yeah.
so all I can say, you're lucky because you just have to create, keep creating,
That's the plan.
Yeah. I don't actually think in your lifetime it's going to change so dramatically that you're going to see an impact on what you do, but it'll get there for sure.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I have no
Well,
doubt. So
I'm glad you don't see it happening in my lifetime.
not that in the way it's going to be,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
thinking 2007, we didn't have, iPhone,
It's just incredible.
right?
It's just incredible.
Or
I mean,
Facebook or Google
Yep,
or any
yep,
of that stuff,
yep.
right?
Yep.
And that was hockey stick technology. This is something at a higher level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, just go look at art and get the emotion that pops it,
Right.
to me. People, if they get, listening to too much news and all that, turn it off.
Right.
Go to an art gallery, go to an art museum, go support a creative person, create art yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It'll feed your soul.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how we went down that.
I don't know either.
But we're really here to talk about you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And your paintings. How many paintings will you have for the show, do you think?
Well, I'm hoping. I know we've discussed. We've discussed the number of 15.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work diligently to get there. So we'll see. It may be a little bit less, but I'll see. The I'll call it the experimental piece.
Right.
Will be interesting.
Right.
So I'll and it won't be something way off in left field.
No, I know.
It'll be interesting. So
yeah.
So I think I need to take a little bit of time to do that, and then but otherwise I've got a bunch of the preliminary things done for some other bigger pieces that I'm going to be doing for you. So it's going to be
so exciting.
Yeah,
Because I don't think I've ever had more than 2 or 3 of your paintings at a
You know,
time.
and it's the first time since 2019 that I've actually done a gallery show.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. It's
honored.
just
Yeah.
oh, thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, you know,
That's
you
a
know,
long time.
you do a fantastic job for me, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I know, like when we did the rodeo show, I just had 3 pieces in that, but it was very impressive. I mean, you really carried it off, and
Yeah.
so it makes you want to do other, or makes
Oh,
me want to do other
Yeah.
shows. You know?
Yeah. That's cool. Well,
You know.
just to see that many paintings on the wall by you will
Yeah,
be very
yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen that many,
yeah.
and so, you know, I used to do a lot of gallery shows, and then I kind of shifted and started doing adding a bunch of the museum shows,
Yes.
and so it's kind of just divided things up differently.
Right. And
you know?
you're, and again, you don't produce a lot. So,
Right. Yep.
you know, you do 3 for a museum, or maybe 5 even, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I've done that before.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, there's only so much of me to go around.
Right. Yeah. And then, you know, like the last show I did was a Quest for the West, and I did 4.
Yeah.
And I had 1 miniature, and then I had a couple of larger ones, and then
Yes.
kind of a medium one, and that just takes a while. I mean, they're all, you
Yeah.
know, that's just the
Well, and I think what
Yeah.
people probably don't realize, artists realize this for sure, but just collectors, is that when you commit to a show,
Mhm.
you can't take your paintings and go sell them. So you don't have income coming in.
Right.
You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And that's 15 paintings that you had to commit to,
Right.
and the frames.
Right. Yep. And framing is expensive.
Very
And-
expensive.
And so you have to be able to kind of bankroll it, you
Yeah.
know, and so it is a commitment, you
Yeah.
know, and sometimes, you know, it's like, if it's just about cash flow, it's just a lot better to just have the paintings constantly being released, because it's just more consistent.
Yes,
You know?
right.
And you don't worry about, like, well, if you know, I've got 15 paintings of, you know, whatever, there's a bad storm or whatever. But you have to kind of get beyond that. And
Right.
so, but the thing there is, it's got to be really worth it. And so, I mean, working with you in your gallery, it's worth it. I mean, you want to do it because it's that you're thinking about the bigger move, you
Yeah.
know, and what you want to do with your career,
Right.
you know, and at some point you have to let go of the whole, well, I want day to day.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of that,
But it is hard.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I
Yep.
mean, and your wife's an artist too.
She
so,
is. Yep.
You know, that's
Yep.
you're dependent on other people to bring in money
Right.
for you.
Right. And we, you know, we're careful. So we make sure we have, you know, money that we can use, and
Yeah.
and
Well, I can see that in you.
and then we also, you know, we do prints and some different
Right.
accessories, and those actually do really well, and that can
Right. And you do some scarves and cool things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that too.
absolutely, yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's actually, I mean, that can produce a great month just in itself.
Yeah.
And so that really helps.
Yeah.
you
And they
know.
can get those just through your website, or
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
and then you also have an Instagram account, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep,
What's
yep.
the name of the Instagram account?
It's William Haskell Studio.
Studio, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I recently it was changed. It was something different. It was just Haskell, I don't know, and with a number, but it didn't
Yeah.
make any sense. So so we changed it to William Haskell
Right.
Studio, and
Right.
which is so that it relates to everything
Yeah.
else.
Anything else you want to talk about or discuss that we haven't? We've gone through AI,
Yeah, I know,
early
yeah,
beginnings,
We've solved all these problems.
psychological issues we have to deal with.
I think we've covered everything.
More than you wanted to.
It's okay. Yeah, no, I enjoy this. You know, you're a great conversationalist, and
Well, I'm interested.
Yeah, I know. You can tell, and
Yeah.
it's great, and you love art, and
I
just
do.
looking around your space here, I'm just like, wow, this is cool. You know, and the gallery is, yeah. I mean, I could spend hours here just looking
Yeah.
around, and there's some great, wonderful things here.
Yeah, we have some very talented
Yeah,
artists.
yeah,
you know,
definitely,
and
definitely.
they all have their unique voice.
Yeah.
They're all in their own lane, and
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
they've all gone through the journey.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know.
Totally.
Some at the end of the journey, some at the beginning.
I know.
you know, some in between.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fascinating.
Some on the covers of magazines as we speak.
Yep. Yep.
You know, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that's an odd thing. to
Oh,
have that.
and it's wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, you know, when I got a call from, we had taken a couple of days, gone up to Colorado and seen the Counting Crows at Red Rocks, and so we were
Mhm.
coming back, And they called and they said, well, would you mind if we use one of your images on the cover? I'm like, does anybody ever say no to that? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah, they're nice people.
They really are. They're just terrific.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they're located in Minnesota, in Minnetonka. And one of my offices, when I worked in advertising and design, all that stuff was not very far from them.
Right.
And so it's pretty interesting.
All Minnesotans are nice.
Minnesota, nice. Go on.
At least all the ones I deal with, I always love.
Yeah, no, it was. I enjoyed living there.
Yeah. Well, we're excited about your January show.
I am too.
You know, for people that are interested, you can let us know. We'll be having pieces out. Soon. We've got 4. I think you brought in 4 or 5.
6.
6.
Yep.
I focused in on the javelina and the agave and the large sorrel with the tornado. That's 3 just like, oh.
Yeah. No, I always have the ones that I feel like, okay, this is kind of my favorite.
Yeah.
You know, your favorite child or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain ones that you just immediately are interested. And there's one that's just all chamisa, a really small one.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
As you saw yesterday, right? It was a little zooish.
Yeah. No, it was
That's
great.
very typical.
No, you've by the looks of things, you had a great October.
Yeah, we were just so busy yesterday.
That's
it was
fantastic.
just, I was working till midnight.
Yeah.
You know, just trying to catch up.
Yeah. And not everybody can say that. You know, I mean, it's if you've had a great October, I think then that's really,
we work hard. We have a good team, you know, that looks at us as a team and wants us to succeed. And we, we take it very seriously that we want our artists to succeed.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can tell.
Oh yeah,
you can tell, and it makes you, you know, it's that whole. It goes back to that whole thing of every artist wants a champion. They want somebody to believe in their work and really feel passionately about it, and that it makes all the difference in the world. I think, you know.
Well, we also feel the pressure and the You know, I do. You know that if I don't sell the paintings, I feel like, you know, they can't eat.
Right.
You know, I mean, literally.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the same thing you do is like, I want to make it perfect and all that.
Right.
I know these paintings are going to sell. I know they're great artists. I know that, you know, I don't have to worry. But at the same time, I do feel like I need to, I want it to be a success.
Right. Well, and you know, I feel the same way. You know, I want to bring you things that I'm like, I want, you know, I want the show to be a success.
Yeah, of course.
For you too. And
I
want to bring in stuff that'll just like fly out the door, you know, because I'm like, I want more stuff, you know. It's
the
just,
caring that matters.
It is, yeah. You got to care. You got to care.
Yeah,
you know?
I think we both do. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thrilled. Thank you for taking the time to go do this.
Thank you for inviting me. It was great to be here.
Yeah, and your wife had a lovely show last
night.
She
did. Yep.
She
sure did.
Yep. She's showing in another gallery.
Yep.
Give a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She, Angie Haskell shows at Jane Hamilton Fine Arts.
So you can go see her work and very Arthur Dovish kind of sensibility.
She loves that kind of that period of art, and so do I. And it's kind of that modernist, New Mexico modernism.
Very much so.
It's great stuff.
Yeah, so you can get 2 for the price of 1 when you come to Tucson.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll go do a couple interviews on some of your paintings.
Cool.
I hung one up that I want to talk about. So
let's do it.
Have that. All right. Excellent.
All right.
Bill Haskell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark Sublette.
You bet.